risk is good, failure is good. What do we define with failure, right? And I think it's not taking risks, not getting out of the comfort zone. So I think I'm being very, very vocal about it. And a lot of people don't like it. They like to live in the comfort zone. So don't do it for the money. So I think that one of the clear answers is that you need to do it because you're really motivated by the purpose, by the objective of doing it. I think that's a fundamental part. There is a very strong why inside you. I want to solve a problem that I really care about, either because a personal story or because you work in an industry and you hate it, or because you want to solve something. I don't have a solution for this and you want to create. So I always say to people, the biggest prioritization tool as an entrepreneur is the word no. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to solve that. And there's very few yeses. And those yeses you have to do extremely well. So then you have a differentiation and then you get some more money or more resources. With a founder today who told me, I just deleted Instagram before going into the conference because I needed to pay attention.
Can you teach entrepreneurs or you just discovered them?
This is like a sports, right? This is like you can coach, you don't teach, you coach. So the talent is there, or the desire is there, and there is certain things that can be coached. But at the end of the day, a coach is just telling you do this many times, and then it will get better and better.
Hey guys, we were thinking to do something special this season again, and we partnered with our friends from How to Web, which is the biggest conference in Eastern Europe for founders and investors in startup. And we planned a couple of episodes here at the conference where we currently are. Sorry for maybe the improvised background and a bit of the loud environment, but we wanted to be here to talk with the high-level guests that they bring here. Thank you again, How to Web, for making this happen, and we invite you to listen to the coming episodes of the Startup Talks podcast. So, Cristobal, I'm super excited to have you to our podcast. It was unbelievable for me for doing this here at How to Web. I was watching you since, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, and the story of Startup Wise Guys 2 years ago, Razvan invited me in Tallinn for a couple of events and Latitude and so on and so forth, and I've been to your office, and Startup Wise Guys story, it's incredible for me. I mean, what you managed to pull up in Estonia is incredible, but we'll get into that
looking forward
in a couple of minutes. I want to start with maybe an odd question, but I saw that it helps to start with such a question in our podcast, so get ready for it. What truth do very few people agree with you on, or maybe in the past? Some sort of, you believed very strong in something and you were like an outsider or like a non-conformist when people heard you saying that or believing in that. I don't know, it can be something personal or something regarding the startup ecosystem.
Well, I can give you two kind of ideas. For example, I'm having now, in the last 2 years, a fight in Spain about we need to do things in English. Right? Okay. So we need to do events in English. We need to pitch in English.
That's very interesting in Spain, by the way.
Yeah, because everybody wants to do it in Spanish. Oh, but how are we going to get everybody integrated, etc.? It's like we cannot create global awareness. And I was impressed negatively, unfortunately, this part, about the very low level of English. I thought, 20 years past, the next generation with all the access to content. So I think that was one, I was like, oh my God. So I'm battling still with my team, this one. And the second one is about the overall perception of failure and risk, right? Is to take this risk is good, failure is good. What do we define with failure, right? And I think it's battling the conformist, not taking risks, not getting out of the comfort zone. So I think I'm being very, very vocal about it. And a lot of people don't like it. They like to live in the comfort zone, and they don't like to have somebody. They call me the critic guy. I say, well, if you don't criticize something with a desire to improve it, we don't improve it, right? We live in the past, right? And I think that has been also. So I have a lot of supporters and a lot of haters, but that's fine. I can live with that. I can respect myself.
As Churchill said, if you have people hating you, it means you've done something right in your life.
Exactly. So at least you've done something, right? That the people can agree or disagree with, and to me that's actually important, right?
You work with, maybe thousands of entrepreneurs in the last, 50, 20 years. Why should someone consider, I would say, the unsexy path towards entrepreneurship? And I know, like, what's the real reason? Why do you think someone should do it? A lot of people are doing for the money, others are doing for, I know, flexibility of working. Why do you think maybe younger people
I can tell you why not to do it.
Okay.
And never do it for the money.
Okay.
Because I think there is way easier paths to money, way more secure. And the ones who are really going to take the money, the real money, is going to be a very, very small percentage, right? So you want to go for the 0.1% that looks like it's amazing wealth creation, but 95% of them never get there, right? While if you work in a well-paid job, you're getting that, right? Of course, let's see what happens when you get to 50 in the ladder, right? So don't do it for the money. I think that one of the clear answers is that you need to do it because you're really motivated by the purpose, by the objective of doing it. So I think that's a fundamental part. There is a very strong why inside you. I want to solve a problem that I really care about, either because a personal story or because you work in an industry and you hate it, or because you want to solve something. I don't have a solution for this and you want to create it. So I think it needs to be a very strong why. And ideally you're doing it with a team that has that bond with the why, right? Because it's going to be a very difficult journey. So you want people that is very much aligned with you on where are you going. And as I will say, the unsexy part of it is you're going to have to plan it, right? So I think a lot of people associate entrepreneurship with this. Let's hustling. Yes, whatever comes, I will solve it. And I think it's a very good attitude towards whatever comes my way, I will be able to solve it. But you need to plan what is coming your way. And if you don't plan enough, you're going to be constantly just basically in a circle, solving, but going nowhere because there's too much fire around you and you have very little resources. So I think the one thing you have to be very clear being an entrepreneur is that initially you have very few resources. And those resources have to solve all the problems, right? So you have to be very focused about what are you paying attention to and what are you not going to do. So I always say to people, the biggest prioritization tool as an entrepreneur is the word no.
Wow.
I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to solve that. No. And there's very few yeses. And those yeses you have to do extremely well. So then you have a differentiation and then you get some more money or more resources. And then you can say yes to a couple more things, right? So I think that when you meet with investors, they always say they focus, right? And focus doesn't mean that you're going to a very narrow space of problem. Is that you have to solve something very well. And then you can start getting more, right?
You said planning. And kind of my next question would have been, what are some of the traits you saw in the successful founders that you worked with? So I know, is this something, because at least in Romania and in this part of Europe, when you talk with traditional business people, they say that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to like break doors. And if someone is like, shutting the door, you have to enter on the window and all this kind of stuff. So what are some of the traits you saw in the successful entrepreneurs that you work with?
There are many, and generalization is difficult, right? But I would say if you want to simplify it in a nice story, I would say they have the capability to have a very large vision. So I think they have this idea about how you're going to be very disruptive. So they don't want to do things 3x, they want to do things 100x, right? But at the same time, they have a plan to at least get to 10x, right? Then they have a vision. So they have a plan to get to the first steps, and they have a vision about what they want to get, and then they keep building that plan as they start achieving some of the resources. I think most of them who are able to at least take themselves, the company forward, they are leaders. So they really have a lead, which means they like teams, right? So they don't have this solo vision of me against the world. I think people have this Steve Jobs vision or Elon Musk, right? And that's fine, but I think the majority of entrepreneurs are good leaders because they can actually share that vision with sufficient people to follow them. And when with very few resources, they're able to attract top talent because talent is adapted to that vision and to work it under that culture, under that leader, right? And I think we have seen this one, and I will say the majority of them are generous. So they're generous with their time and generous with their resources, generous with their wealth afterwards, because
they still say a lot of no's.
Exactly. Exactly, but no is about focus. It's not about people, and no is also. I think saying no to people is also respectful. I think there is too many people who doesn't answer or says yes and then they don't do it. Right. So I think no is actually very good. Sometimes say, will you invest on this? No, I won't invest because A, B, C. Okay, thank you for the feedback. But instead of saying, maybe keep me posted. And you're wasting somebody else's time because you know deep inside you're never going to do it, right? So to me, answering no matter what and answering on a constructive manner, which includes mostly saying no, it's actually nice. And I think also as a leader, you tell your team, no, let's not do this, let's not do that, right? Because your team is excited about everything. Yeah, let's do it. We can't. I love to do that one, but we cannot do it, right? So you have to, how do we prioritize? So I think prioritization is also a key on success. Many entrepreneurs that are able to prioritize at any given time, and they are able to narrow down to one priority if needed. And I think most people cannot do that. And I think that's what this thing is the guys who are going to be successful, the ones who are not going to be successful.
Do you think that, like, social media, crypto, all of this, like, new trends lately messed up with this mindset? Because a lot of people, you said that, for example, you shouldn't do entrepreneurship for the money. But you see in the young generation, they don't do anything if it's not going to get them, like, I don't know, $1 million in 6 months. How do we counter that?
I think it's very easy to demonize everything and a generation. I think every generation thinks that the next generation, compared with them, they're wrong. I'm sure the generation after generation will say the guys are wrong. But it's true that we have the social media experiment, in my opinion, has not worked. So it was coming with it has a lot of positive things.
Absolutely.
But it has a lot of risks, and I think it's messing up with the focus of people, with the capacity. I was with a founder today who told me I just deleted Instagram before going into the conference because I needed to pay attention.
Wow.
Right? Which is good. At least he has awareness of this, right? But they realize that an app on their phone is controlling them. And the only way to basically regain control is just delete it. Even if it's on the phone, they will have to pay attention to it, right? So I don't think they're into money. I think there is true that they have this fame, being recognized.
And faster results, at least.
That is the instant gratification is a problem.
Exactly.
And I was talking to a TikTok consultant. They were talking about, should we do TikTok?
There is that.
Yeah, of course. We were talking about TikTok, right? And they said, and she said, if you are in TikTok, you need to give us things quickly, fast, because we need instant gratification. We want things now. And I'm thinking, this goes against my values. There is no instant gratification. The long-lasting things, they're not instant, right? And I'm reading a book which is Die with Zero. And it's all about, it's not about now. It's about creating lasting memories, lasting experiences that are your memory dividends when you're getting older. I said, hey, I did something unique. And I said, at some point, the only thing that will last on you is the memories of the amazing things you did in the past, at least, right? And you at least have to have those and a smile, right? And it's not instant gratification. I think it's long-lasting gratification. And I think, but again, it's very easy to say, this generation said, well, all of us have kids, or most of us have kids. So it's our job to how do we train them
Definitely.
To get the good part of it, but not the bad part of it, right?
Learning how to live with this technology.
You're not going to now say to all of them, guys, no phones for the next 10 years. That's not going to happen, right?
No.
So how do we re-educate ourselves?
That's what my questions. How can we, I have these philosophical questions. Can you educate, grow, teach entrepreneurs, or you just discover them, like people that just have it? And you work with, again,
I think this is like a sports, right? This is like, you can coach, you don't teach, you coach, right? So the talent is there, or the desire is there, and there is certain things that can be coached. But at the end of the day, a coach is just telling you, do this many times, and then it will get better and better. And he's just there to tell you, this is the drill I want you to do. And the coach is trying to tell you, okay, if you do this drill well enough, this is what you get, right? So I think we can coach them very well. We can show them maybe a methodology to avoid wasting time or to have some direction. But at the end of the day, they're going to go through that themselves. You are like, I tell people, hey, when they ask me, what would you do? I said, it's your company, not mine. I'm not taking decisions in your behalf. If I want that, I have my company. I can tell you maybe what I think. I can tell you what are the options that I think you might be facing. But you can coach them. But I hate when people say, I'm going to class. So I'm not giving classes. I'm not giving lectures. I'm working with you. And I'm trying to coach you about what I think could be the options, alternatives. But you need to, because if we teach them, most people don't learn. Right? They just take notes, memorize it, and give you the answer. Yeah. I said, no. I want you to find the answer yourself. Because then you will know how to do it the next time, and the next time, and the next time, right? So I think you can coach entrepreneurs. I don't think you can teach entrepreneurship. I think it's just not going to happen, right? And then it's true that there is certain traits, personal traits, that will make you
better than some.
Having more possibilities to succeed. Let's put it this way, right? But still the odds are against you, right? So and that's what I mean, like, you need to enjoy the journey because the end result probably is going to be worse than you expected. Yep. You talked before about freedom. Of course, there is the freedom of making the decisions, of owning your agenda. So there is perks of choosing to do entrepreneurship. But I think the hardship cannot be avoided and cannot be not mentioned. I think we cannot live in a this is why we always wrote the book about the unsexy truth, right? There's a lot of unsexy things that you need to do well to get to the sexiness of success. Let's put it this way, right?
You have a chapter in the book, as you were mentioning it. I think it's called Optimal Energy. And I don't know if I didn't read the chapter, disclaimer yet, but when I saw the title of the chapter, my mind went to something that I keep thinking in the last months. That I know Europe in general, or I know maybe it's global, there is less and less entrepreneurial energy. That enthusiasm about energy, and I think it also related with the body energy of doing hard things long periods of time. So maybe how should founders teach themselves, grow themselves? I know you're passionate about everything regarding health, nutrition, and so on and so forth. You have been a professional basketball player. So what tips, what tricks do you have here for founders that want to... Because I see a lot of people quitting just because of the lack of close to burnout of just...
Yeah, but I think burnout exists, and I think is the trend right now to be open about talking about it is good. I think people misuses the words too easily. I think they confuse pressure and stress, and they are two very different things. Okay. Although obviously too much pressure can lead to stress. But there is also certain degrees of stress, and under certain level of stress, people is able to perform. Question is, how long can they do that before burning out, right? So when you are going in sports, actually they train you to be better than others at that moment of pure stress, but it can be only the last shot, it can be the last 30 seconds. It cannot be 40 minutes. You have 40 minutes under that level of stress, it will kill your body, right? But I think the most important part is that you need to take care of yourself. And if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others, right? Being your family, being your employees, etc. And I think nobody knows you better than you, right? And I think there's too many people bullshitting themselves, right? With the way they eat, the way they take care of themselves. You know when you are not doing exercise. You know whether that is influencing your mood. You know whether that is influencing your performance, right? So you need to build those habits. I think if you look at the chapter of Optimal Energy, it's all about build good habits. Like everybody knows they have to drink 2 to 3 liters of water a day.
Just do it.
But almost half of them don't do it, right? And it got fashionable to have these bottles, but I think just because you know that if you drink 8 of those, you have drink enough, and it's a way to keep yourself accountable, right? You know when you have eaten poorly for 2 or 3 days, well, stop and eat better, right? Or take a break or cook yourself. So I think it's a matter about if you don't respect yourself, how can you be respected by others? If you don't respect your body, and your body doesn't get better. it just gets worse. You get everything hurts more. So it's never too late to start taking care of yourself. But the more you delay that, the more catch up. At some point, you cannot catch up. You wouldn't recover. You can improve the future, right?
But isn't that something that will, because we all have all this, I know, US-based hustle culture. Wouldn't that put you in a position of jeopardizing, I know, not growing too fast, not doing too much?
But I think we cannot. You are not going to be effective 20 hours a day. Okay, it's impossible. People understand efficiency and effectiveness, right? But the whole thing is not about being 20 hours effective. It's about the 8 hours that you're working, or the 6 hours. So some days you say, hey, I'm destroyed. I only have 4 hours. So I need to be extremely effective these 4 hours, extremely focused, because I'm super tired, or I know I'm landing late in that day, or I know we have not eaten well. So you have 4 hours. So it's not about staying 12 hours. It's 4 hours. The next day you sleep well, say, man, now I have 14 hours. Or the next day you have something, hey, I want to go to a movie, or I want to go to a kid party, or I want to go to a concert. And you know that by going to that concert, the next day you're going to be way more effective because you're motivated, because you please yourself, because you gave yourself something that you can memorize, right? And to me, it's this, don't deny yourself the things that keep you happy. Because they're going to improve your mood and they're going to make you 10 times more effective, right? And I think that's the confusion. I think sometimes in this American mentality, which, by the way, is not everywhere in the US also. It's very different, right? But again, don't blame Americans. Each one of us has our own way. There is one thing that I think is better in Europe, which is we have a culture, or we have culture. We have a social culture of enjoying time with our people, of dinners, of drinks, of discussions, right? And I think those are also fundamental parts of keeping your brain sharp, keeping yourself curious. And if you do that, that's going to improve your business because your thinking process is going to be clearer. You're going to ask questions about. There's so many times that you're reading a book and you're like, wow, okay. And it has nothing to do with the book. But the book allowed your brain to be fresh enough to be receptive to new things, right? So I think optimal energy is about understanding how much can you be productive today, do it well, and then it's how can you amplify that if you want to, right? And by the way, I do certain things very well, but I don't sleep too much. But I know that I need my naps. Okay, so I don't need to sleep 12 hours. I can probably go in 5 to 6 hours. But then I know that then ideally I should take 30 minutes during the day. So I need to plan how I find myself in that situation, right?
How does a day look for Cristobal?
I think it depends a lot if I'm on the road or not.
Let's say a regular one.
So a regular one is getting up rather early. So first rule is don't switch on the phone for the first hour. So basically, whatever you're going to do in the morning, be grounded to it. So if you're at home taking your kids, enjoy that process, right? Which is cooking the food, preparing your coffee, going out to the terrace, look at the window, breathe some air, etc. So you're not, and then you're enjoying the process. You need to take them to the bus. They need to take the bus. That's your first hour. That's sacred because that's the 1 hour you have with your kids until 6 o'clock, right? So you have the rest of the day to think, right? If you are actually on the road, then use that hour to plan, to read a book, to take a much longer shower that you cannot take at home because you have an obligation, right? So it's get yourself grounded in that first hour of the day, and also plan. So I try to plan the day. I actually usually plan it even the day before. I look at what is coming today, and also I want to get myself an excitement about what is exciting me or what's coming up today. Or what's coming up tomorrow, right? Yeah. So I want to go with the head saying, tomorrow is the day I'm looking forward to it, right? Then I would say every day involves 12, 14 calls minimum. If we're lucky, we have 2 or 3 on-site meetings also. But there is a lot of calls there. There is always a break for eating. So I try to make sure that if I'm home, I'm cooking even. So I want and if I'm at home, actually, I usually take a swim, cook, eat. And again, you can do that 45 minutes if well planned.
Nice.
But again, your brain is like resetting, right?
Nice.
And I think then it's, again, 10, 12, 14 calls. And trying to make usually breaks to catch up with email, I try to respond every email. I try to respond every WhatsApp. I try to have about, I would say, 1 hour of networking. So might be LinkedIn, might be WhatsApp, might be etc. And I'm trying to start building up also curiosity moments or learning moments. Sometimes more successful than others. Sometimes it's just making sure that you are reading a book. Sometimes it's making sure that having a podcast. So again, if you're traveling, so hey, try to learn, watch a movie, try to listen to a podcast, try to read a book, because that's one of the few times that you're going to be grounded, relaxed, etc. And then always a good dinner. To me, I really, from the diet point of view, a stronger lunch and lighter dinner is better. But to me, the dinner is a special social moment, right? If you're at home, you're at home. If you are away, you're away. But that's the moment that I want to have no phone. I want to have a good bottle of wine. I want to be chatting. I want to be enjoying. I want to be there. So I'm almost trying to, I don't think I ever had dinner at the hotel, ever. So meaning like, I always want to have dinner with someone, right? The more people, the better, right? And try to build some exercise. So in my case, it's usually 6 to 8. That's why it's before dinner. It's after the working day. It's a good way to do some exercise, clean up a little bit, take a shower, almost feel okay. Now I have about 3-4 more hours. Almost like I'm taking my second wake up of the day. It's like in the morning, you take a shower, you're like, oof, okay.
Yep.
So it's like changes your clothing. It's a fresh day, even if it's a 4-hour day ahead of me, but I'm fresh and ready for that second part of the day, right? So it's always kind of building up those moments, right? And if I'm at home, I usually there is basketball or piano involved at the second part of the day to try to do it, right? So I would say.
Thank you very much for coming up with all of this. I mean, many times, we keep reading, you should do that, you should do this, but coming it from people that are in the game at a certain level where you are, it's, I think, super important to understand like little details makes huge difference here. So thank you again. Let's go to Startup Wise, guys. Guys, you have 14 years. How many years you have? 40?
Now our 13th year of life.
13 years of life.
We are teenagers already. We're teenagers already.
In Romania now is when you get your ID card. I don't know how it is.
So with 5 years to get our ID card, but getting there.
Nice. So why do you think, what makes Startup Wise as the success that you have, guys? I mean, you're the biggest program in Europe, 400 plus 400 startup plus 450 startups working, 60 countries, 47 accelerator batches. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. Looking back, would you point to some important things that brought you this success as a company and as a startup builder?
Well, I think there is certain things at inception that has not changed that are relevant. I think we were always born with this very international outlook. So I think most of the accelerator or early stage investors that were created in Europe in the, let's say, the first half of 2010 to 15, most of them because they were given money by government, so there was rules imposed. They were very local, regional max. So I think we were this mentality of being international from day one, being a small country like Estonia, like a region like the Baltics.
And also
but I think
you a bit.
I think you were forced for sure, but I think it was also the Estonian mentality to be, we want to be an international, no matter how small we are, we want to be an international player. So how do we get there? I think we were very founder focused from day one. So I think we almost said, if you give us to choose, we're more of a founder than an investor. Even if at the end of the day, Herty calls it being a virtual co-founder. But I think we have always have this mentality of being an entrepreneur, of being a founder, and being there for them. Even if, of course, we put money and we need to return money. But I think that has been from day one. And that's how I think we select the teams, we select our companies, we select our employees. I think has been there. I think we have never had too much money. So I think we have always been entrepreneurial. Of course, with the scale, things change a tiny bit, but I think we have never lost this entrepreneurial. And I think we are always, almost, I would say, you're almost 6 months away from dying, right? No matter. And I think keeping this mentality of how can we improve, right? I think, and again, I think the international outlook in our own team. I think there's been at some point we have 20 nationalities in the team, right? And I think this makes it a bit different. Makes it very curious. I think there's always been this warmth. Some people say, well, one of my is bringing this Spanish passion into an Eastern European team. So you have the hustling, the resilience, the pride of the Eastern Europeans. I think it's amazing. But you bring a bit of this warmth and this passion and this positivity that probably we have more in Southern Europe. And I think that mix is strong. And I think, but again, I think it's always this. I think BCs. They focus on getting their 5-10% successful, and I think we have always believed in the middle class. So of course we have our 10% that will be more successful, but our mentality has always been if you keep supporting the people that is in the middle, many of them will become successful. And those people, if they are not successful as an investment, they will be still successful in the ecosystem. They will be mentoring. They will be supporting. So I think this network mentality, this alumni mentality, we have always tried to come in there. And maybe the last one is, I don't think I'm very competitive. I come from playing basketball. I always want to be number one. I always want to win, right? Of course, and it's very interesting because there was a point in the team was almost 80% female. Now it's probably 60-40. So the females were like, I don't care about winning per se. I care about something much deeper, right? Yeah. So there's always been this mentality, but I think we have never gone into ecosystem to elbow somebody else. So we always say, hey guys, we're here to collaborate. We are here. It's early stage. We need to co-invest. We need to put money together. We need to put efforts together. We need to, so you're not going to achieve anything being the best in Cluj if Cluj is very small. But I want to work with 6-7 people to make Cluj much bigger, right? And then maybe I want to be the best one of the 7, but we need to do it together, right? So I think this mentality to come into places, and again, because we were maybe not chasing the local money, the local government, this collaboration spirit, I think has been very important in our success and in kind of in the long-term view of the business, right? But I also feel we're not successful yet. I think we just started. I think we can be 3 times bigger, 10 times bigger. I think when I see the volumes of Y Combinator, I keep wondering why in Europe we think 500 is very big when they have 5,000, right? Because there's no shortage of talent in Europe, so talent is not an issue. So we need to keep thinking bigger. I think our biggest challenge is, while keeping the culture, keeping the enjoy life mentality the Europeans have, is about scale. Something the Americans do amazingly well is the thing big. You got anything they create is created to be 1,000 times bigger from almost the get-go, right? And that's, I think, very, very difficult for Europeans to
But
to
isn't
think.
that because of the European culture?
I don't know what it is. I think, of course, we have borders. But again, we have always very good companies. We have the Volvos, we have the Ericssons, we have the Zaras. It's not that we haven't have global giants in the Italian food industry all around the world, right? So it's never been an issue to create global players in almost all the industries, right? These Americans, they're Europeans. So I don't think so. I think we just have to...
What do we lack then?
I think
Time.
right now we live too comfortably. I think at some point, I think if you look at the idea about the American dream at the end of the day was mostly immigrants that came to the country with nothing, and they were promised that you work hard enough, you can be as big as you want. Nothing will stop. Right? But it was immigrants coming with this, I need to make it. I need to make it for my next generation so my kids doesn't have to leave if they don't want to, right? And I think we have lost a bit of that in Europe because our kids were going on vacation to London when they were 5 years old. They were going to Euro Disney when they were 8 years old. They're going to private schools. They were going to Real Madrid football campus when they're 11. And then they said, what's so bother? Life is beautiful, right? I have friends in Norway that said the kids tell them 18, I don't want to study because I know the government can pay for me the rest of my life, right? So I think we have, and we need to, again, being ambitious doesn't mean I want more money.
Definitely.
It's about more experiences. It's about more interesting things, right? So I think we need to recover this hunger and there is so many big problems in the world that need solutions, right? So to me, you cannot just say others will solve it, right? And I think we're just waiting for Europeans have gotten too used to somebody else will solve the big problems.
Yeah.
And we will be here with our culture, our food, our monuments, etc. And I don't want Europe to become an amusement park. And I have seen too many scenarios in which that's what we become.
And the tourist place
exactly.
for... Yeah.
It's a place for tourists, for culture, to enjoy. And we're just serving the Chinese or the oil guys or the American guys. And I don't want Europe to become that place. I think Europe can be very innovative in many, many different places.
How's your vision about such a Europe, or I know Startup Wise Guys' vision about that?
I think startups, the startup ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, is the lifeline of Europe. It's not the Telefonicas, it's not the Banco Santander, it's not Ferrari, it's not Mercedes, it's not Siemens, it's not Nova Nordics. Those are amazing companies, but we need to create the next 100 of those. And if you know, we haven't created a large company in Europe, a real large company in the last 2 decades.
Yes, I just looked over the statistics made by Dealroom in the tech sector, and they made it like a top 20 big European companies since 1990. And if you compare those companies with US companies or even Asian companies, they are so behind that.
Yeah. No, if you look at the biggest 30 companies in Europe, probably 28 of them were there 30 years ago or 20 years ago. If you look at the same in the US, half of them or more didn't exist before.
Yes.
And I think it's this renewal cycle, right? And I think, and again, I don't know if it's the cost of the Fed, but that's what we need in Europe.
Yes.
So I think we need many new startups and innovative thinking, solving problems, and maybe part of the problems they solve is education, and they solve taking care of older people. There's a lot of social problems that need. So again, we cannot confuse this with money.
No.
This is, I want people to make more money. I want more millionaires, billionaires. No. But I want Europeans to solve big issues, right? And I think we have the cultural richness and the diversity that most of other continents don't have, right? And I think we need to build over that. And in an area with AI. So are we missing the bandwagon of AI? Well, at the end of the day, those models are available for everyone, right? So we cannot lose. So we have lost too many trades, and I don't want to lose this one just because we think too narrow.
And why? I mean, one of the problems that I see in not having this renewal cycle of new big companies coming from Europe is the capital allocation structure. I mean, this is what you have in US. I mean, they invented the VC model and so on and so forth. How do you see the current state of the VC's ecosystem in Europe?
Oh, I think that the one big difference is that the biggest LPs in the US are pension funds. Pension funds are amazing investors because they're long-term investors. They're not here to get money in the next 4 or 5 years. They need to get money because it's a pension. Right? It's 30 years from now. I want that money to be much bigger, right? And if you look at the return model of VC, it's a 10-year per fund, right? So you want to invest in the same fund 3 times. It's a 20, 30 years structure, right? So I think lacking these pension funds investors, I think is a huge problem for. So that leaves us with basically 4 or 5 very big institutional investors, EIF, one of the EBRD, and some others. I think we're lacking that, right? And I think the second one is the allocation to real estate. I think you make, again, because of the way the countries are formed, you can make so much money with real estate that a lot of the allocation of real estate assets should be allocated to venture capital or to PE or to the innovation overall, and that is not happening either, right? So I think that is a big issue, and it needs to be changed, right? But that part I cannot solve, right? So, and I think if you ask me, even the way some of our institutional investors are behaving in Europe is too classic. We're investing in venture capital with a view of venture capital from 20 years ago, right? Too slow, 2 to 3 years to deploy capital and so again, there is a need for way more liveness, speed on the way we are doing things, right? But again, we have our job to do, which is put those returns. So tell them, hey, how can you miss these returns if this is purely an investment model? And also, I think, is the amount of employment that our sectors will create, the amount of impact and sustainability that our sectors will create. So the more we can prove the impact, I think the more that we will be forcing institutional investors to put more and more money in this asset class.
As one of the biggest accelerator in Europe, how do you see the role of accelerators in all of this push towards innovation in Europe? Because if you read the statistic, it's very weird. Statistically, if you take all the accelerators and track all the startups that went through it, it's like you don't necessarily need to go through an accelerator to be a successful startup. Why do you think is that, and where you see the value of accelerators in this?
Yeah, I think first the word accelerator and incubator has been so broadly used all across the countries that it has almost a bad reputation. So I almost like to take the problem from a different angle, which is there is a very important role on early stage investment, right? And that's a combination of micro VCs or accelerator VCs and angel investors, right? And we have an obligation to become a smart money, right? Because that's I think the moment in which the companies are more fragile, and especially when we're talking to first time founders, right? So I think there will always be first time founders. There will always be first time teams. So our role is basically to make sure that whoever goes through our programs gets value out of it, right? Which means that there is a certain need of customization. So I think the problem is that most of the accelerators are underfunded. So they try to basically do whatever they can to justify their model. But that doesn't mean that it's helping the startups. I think the acceleration model well done is not an easy model. It's a difficult business model, right? But if it's not well executed, it doesn't add any value. And I think I always tell people, our vision is to become the largest boutique accelerator. And to me, boutique is that it still can cater to the need of every startup. So maybe 60% of my curriculum in the accelerator is the same, but 40% is customized startup to startup to the challenges, right? And I think it's also creating a huge network effect. So when you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 founders in your own network, there is doors that can be opened, there is investors that can be introduced, there can be mistakes that can be avoided, there is talent that can be accessed to, right? So how do we create a very large network effect through the acceleration, right? Which again, it can be an accelerator, it can be a very active early stage investor, doesn't matter. But you need to be able to create those network effects, right? And I think that has not been done in the majority of cases, right? But at the end of the day, we need to create value added. We need to know our differentiation. We need to create value added, and you need to be able to justify how do you provide a smart money. And I think few do, and those who do will be very, very successful. And we need to create that connectivity. We need to be a filter to something in the cap table that is attractive for the next investors to be looking at it. So we cut the time to market to access the next funding, to access the next enterprise, to access whatever you need, right? Talent, etc., right?
What's the role of accelerator? Like, what are the limits of an accelerator should do, and what's like, okay, this you need to let the founder do it more? Because it's like there are accelerators that are just doing, I don't know, 2 workshops per week, and that they call themselves an accelerator. Then maybe there are other accelerators that are to push it towards founders. Where do you see the balance here?
I think it's an excellent question, and I think we keep thinking about how much hand-holding we have to do, right? It's great to hand-hold so they make very few mistakes during 4 months, but then when you stop doing it, do they know how to thrive themselves, right? So, but if you don't do it enough, they make so many mistakes that they're not even alive at the end of the 4 months, right? So where do you find that balance? I think first we work full time, right? So during those 4 months, we are there the full time. That doesn't mean that every single hour you're working with us, right? But we really want to be clear about you're working with us for 4 full months, so we can achieve results together with those full months, right? But I think the limit is exactly on the coaching versus teaching.
Okay.
So you cannot be teaching them anything. You have to be all the time coaching, right? So we say, we're going to classes. I love my founders tells me, I don't have time for class. So you're not going to class. So you're going to meet the guy in the sales coach and he's going to ask you, have you interviewed 100 customers? No. Okay, go and do it and come back tomorrow. With what did you, and ask them, why are they buying for you? Why are they talking to you? Or why will they change providers? Or what are they missing in somebody else's product? Or which functionality they need to really switch to you, right? Go and do it. Go and do it. And then we have the answers. Then we have the next one. I say, okay, now we know why. Now we say, how do we market this? And then we talk about, hey, what is the sales process? Because a lot of the companies don't have a process. They just, let's call 100 people. Okay, but how many steps do you need to convince them? Why are you taking 7 steps? Why don't you reduce it to 5? How do we actually reduce the friction? How do we do the onboarding? How do we do? So you need to basically, so our biggest job in those 4 months is like, if you want to get X in 4 months, what is the process to get there? And where can we support you in that process? And then tell us, right? So I think is being able to identify the challenges ahead of these people and how can, in which of them you just need a methodology to walk through it, and which of them you need some kind of coaching intervention to avoid your mistakes or to fast track you into the right direction, right? So I think that's the limit in a way, right? But for sure, don't handhold, right? Because at some point they need to leave your accelerator, right? But I also find it very funny when I say, it's too hard. Like, too hard? I say it's much colder out there. You think the accelerator is hard life? Oh man, just wait when you have to be outside.
You'll
right?
You'll see what the market is doing to you.
The market is much harder than we ever be. We're very friendly at the end of the day. I say to people, hey, make mistakes now. Now you're in a friendly environment to a certain degree, right? So now is when you have to be testing yourself. I think that's also part of where the limit is there, right? So you can make all the mistakes now. It's way cheaper. I always tell people, the cheapest time to make mistakes at the beginning. Because if you fuck it up, my French, it's very cheap. But when you have 20 employees, 30 employees, when you have 20 customers, every mistake costs way more, right? So the time to make costly mistakes is later. Now is the time to make cheap mistakes, right? So make a lot of them, right? And I think that's also part of what we try to do with them, right?
You work with a lot of, governments, public institutions in a lot of countries. Looking at Romania, what do you see as, a differentiation, something that we can bring into this European dream of becoming more innovative? What do you see Romania differentiating with?
Well, I think you have an extraordinary amount of young talent because of the population, because of the age, because of the hunger. I think because of what you've been thrown into the last 30 years, I think there is a true entrepreneurial spirit in the people. So I think talent, leverage that talent, I think that's fundamental, and that's something that Romania can contribute. You're in a very interesting geographical part. You have a very interesting cultural richness there. So I think there is nothing that stops Romania being a much more important player in the space. I think you're coming from the outsourcing industry, right? So that was easy. But I think it's also clear that that's gone, right? There is very little value added in the outsourcing industry, right? So I think that has educated. So your workforce is way more technical in average. So I think we really need to train the Romanians to think bigger. And to think also that sometimes there is not shortcuts. You cannot shortcut certain things, right? So you need to get there step by step, right? So think bigger, but don't try to shortcut anything, right? And I think, but again, the talent is there. So I think we really need to leverage the talent that we find in the country. And hopefully the institutions are there to support what is happening, not to try to dictate what needs to happen, right? So I think the most successful governments are those who say, hey, what is the private sector doing and how can I help amplifying that? And secondly, the sectors that are trying to help creating a brand for the country or brand for the region, right? So the governments have a role to play about the country brand or the regional brand, and also really support the private sector. Don't tell the private sector what to do. See what is going well and try to put more there.
And
try to facilitate,
to the private sector.
listen there, ease there. I think that's what you can do, right? And then, of course, I think R&D, research, that's something that you actually can find here and probably even cheaper. So there is still some value for money opportunity in Romania. And I think the one part that I think can make a difference is if you invest that into research, into research facility, R&D facilities. That can be also an advantage there.
And one last question, Cristobal. So what's your game as Startup Wise Guys in Romania, and why should a founder join Startup Wise Guys family, as you like to call it?
Yeah, I think our game starts by investing as much as possible. I always feel that we have, if we look at the amount of investments in the country, I think we had only 3 or 4. So I think we have underinvested in the country because that's the problem, right? So I see our role about first doing way more investments. Man, again,
why didn't it happen already?
We didn't see enough good companies. I think it's a double-edged sword. Some of them is we need to look further. Some of them is we have to convince maybe the good founders to come to us. I think what we are doing really well in the last 2 years is talking to all the players, knowing all the investors, knowing all the angel networks in the different regions. So I think we are really facilitating that concentration. So our first role in Romania is triple, quadruple, quintuple what we invest here.
Nice.
And I think what we can offer to them is a much easier path to international outlook. So connectivity to countries, to VCs outside Romania, is to really help on scaling sales. So if you have a problem with going international, you have a problem with scaling sales, and if you have a problem with building the company to scale, I think those are the 3 things that we do really, really, really well, right? We can say, okay, our teams pitch also very well, but I think pitching is becoming, everybody is already being educated much more, and there is excellent pitch coaches out there. But I think that's what we can offer here, right? Again, really helping in this, making Romania and Romanian founders way more connected to the rest of the European ecosystem. That's the one thing that we really can do, and creating more and more role models as much as possible. So hopefully that's the first steps. Can we do more? Hopefully so, but I think we need to start with there.
Thank you so much, Cristobal, for joining us. Wish you all the best, and can't wait to have the first Make IT Nord startup joining Startup Wise Guys family.
Will do. Thanks.
Thanks.